Thank you, Mr President. I rise in adjournment to raise a matter of concern related to an independent review into parliamentary practices and procedures to support workplace culture, which I'll refer to as the review. Members will be aware that the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, the Commissioner, Ms Sarah Bolt, has been undertaking the independent review into parliamentary practices and procedures to support workplace culture. An interim report is available on the Equal Opportunities Tasmania website outlining the process and progress of the review. The terms of reference set out the scope of the review and are available on the Equal Opportunity website. Essentially, they state the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, the Commissioner, be requested to undertake a review of the Tasmanian Ministerial and Parliamentary Services, MPS, workplace to ensure a safe and respectful workplace and reflect best practice in preventing and dealing with workplace discrimination, sexual harassment and bullying. Ministerial and Parliamentary Services described as including all members of Parliament and the people working in whatever capacity in or for Parliament House, elected officers and ministers' offices. It also encompasses regularly contracted services, including security, catering, cleaning staff. The scope of work of the workplace extends to include work-related travel and events. Thus, it's broad and it's a complex workplace. The workplace definition is broad as it captures many people, such as ourselves as members, ministerial advisors, and ministers who are also members, elected officers, people employed by the Parliament, by presiding officers. As I've said, by its very nature, the MPS is complex. There is no single employer, and there are various people who have responsibilities and accountabilities in respect of staff and members. The review has been described as involving gaining an understanding of the nature and extent of workplace discrimination, sexual harassment and bullying within the Tasmanian Ministerial and Parliamentary Services workplace, perceptions of workplace culture, the impact of such behaviour on workers and existing policies and complaint and report mechanisms available to workers. Staff and members across MPS have been invited to participate, with all encouraged to come forward and complete a survey, provide submissions or participate in face-to-face discussions about their experiences. One might expect that much of what's been revealed is of a highly sensitive and personal nature. Accordingly, review participants have been promised confidentiality and anonymity. The review is to conclude with the publication of a report. The report will set out the findings from the review and make recommendations about any change that should be made to ensure a workplace, or the workplace, is free from discrimination, sexual harassment and bullying, and best practice policies and procedures are in place to enable a safe and respectful workplace. All very important and all support, I'm sure every member supports. As I noted, the review has been conducted by the Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, Ms Sarah Bolt. The Commissioner is an independent statutory officer. The work on the review is being undertaken by the Tasmanian Ministerial and Parliamentary Services Workplace Review Team working under the Commissioner's direction. I note the review interim report dated 17 March 22 indicates that the final report will be provided to the committee in July 2022 and will be made available to the public thereafter. I look forward to progressing, this is from the interim report, I look forward to progressing the next steps of the review and continuing to engage with MPS staff to create a report that is truly reflective of their experiences, forward-focused and facilitative of change in the MPS workplace. So, Mr President, I ask, who is this committee and what standing does it have? It's not a parliamentary committee set up to establish an inquiry, as we would understand by a group of members who have an interest in launching such an inquiry into bullying and harassment in the complex workplace. This is laudable, and I have a very high degree of confidence that all members would support this. However, I am concerned that this committee is without parliamentary powers, standing or privilege, this group of people has been provided preliminary access to a report that will include personal accounts and experiences of what's occurred in the MPS workplace. For what purpose, I ask, Mr President, was this report provided to a group of members in such a complex workplace? I understand it was provided early this week, and it seems others outside the members of this group who are members may also have had access, while all others in the MPS have not. Mr President, this is an independent review, not a government review or a committee review, and and it should have been released publicly to afford fairness and transparency and respect to all participants and those in management responsibilities in the MPS. As I stated, the MPS is complex. As we as members have power and obligations, we are governed by a code of conduct and under the authority of our respective houses. For some of us, we are guided by ministerial codes and party whips. I'm not one of those. A group of members or committee as described by the reviewer do not have obligations or duties over all elements of the MPS workplace. For example, members do not engage contractors or employ staff. We don't even employ our own electorate officers. And it seems unfair that this group of members had a preview of the report and can prepare themselves for the public release while others cannot. I also wonder what the ongoing status of this committee is. Do they guide reform or have some role in implementing recommendations where they have no legal authority to do so? The report will be welcomed, I'm sure. It might not be pleasant, but I'm sure it'll be welcomed that the information is out there. We, like other Westminster parliaments, are not immune from bad behaviour, and such a review is an important litmus test to see what the state of play is and to shed light on behaviours, challenges, structural barriers and the impact of the workplace and the people in it, which is all of us, including staff, all of us. Whatever the recommendations may be, some I know are already aware of those. It will take time and care to implement, and some people may well need support during this process. It cannot be done without preserving the integrity of the separation of powers and recognition of the complex legal and constitutional principles that underpin the MPS, parliamentary democracy and our system of government. Deep consideration of these principles and collaboration with all the actors working across the MPS is required, and I think that is not what has occurred. And Mr. President, this is why I am deeply disappointed on behalf of all participants, those who may be adversely affected by the findings, those who may be ultimately charged with giving effect to recommendations, and have been treated who have not been treated the same way as these so-called committee participants. There's no reflection on the members of that committee or a group of members or the reviewer, as I have spoken to the reviewer about my concerns, but I also spoke to the Premier about my concerns about this. As such, I appreciate the good intent that initially sparked the conversation and the review, something I did fully support that review being undertaken. But it is a matter that needs to be resolved carefully and in the recognition of our powers and to some degrees privilege and status individually and collectively as members of this place and our status in this institution. This report should be released to everyone in MPS, regardless if they made a submission or not. It should be released to everyone. With failure to do so, and I understand that it's not going to be released this week, failure to do so does not respect those in the workplace, especially those brave people who came forward to share their experiences. I call on the immediate release of the report, acknowledging it won't be nice and won't be pretty, but I think it's fundamentally wrong that it was provided to a group of members, no staff, but I believe it's been provided to other people who are not members of that group, and many people here don't have access. Fundamentally wrong.
Question is that Councillor